right, welcome everyone to the Recovery First podcast. I'm your host, Mike Todd. We are live here at Askham Studios in Greenville, South Carolina, a much cooler Greenville, South Carolina, I might add, in the last couple of days. Tonight's show is brought to you by the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association. They have gotten out a little over 1,000 naloxone kits to housing and recovery housing statewide in South Carolina, and they've had 13 reported overdose reversals. A little bit about Freedom Recovery Center and the Recovery First program. It's an initiative and community program in Greenville, South Carolina, supporting those who suffer from substance use disorder by providing access to treatment, recovery services, and permanent housing. All right, so we're going to go over this. The Catawba Nation was going to have the Catawba River Ramble on September 11th, and it looks like, unfortunately, due to COVID, it has been canceled. But I do believe they are working on something virtual. We'll get with my good friend Erica Parsley about that, and I do want to give a shout out to all of the recovery warriors from the Catawba Nation. So the Jesse May harm reduction bus will be in the old Save More parking lot off Wade Hampton Boulevard, and that's near the Motel 6 area. They'll be there from 5 to 7 on Friday. They'll be giving out naloxone, clean syringes, and spreading love, dignity, and the message of recovery all throughout the Greenville community. They'll also be, this is a new location, they are also going to be at New Life Church in Berea off of White Horse Road from 7 to 9 on Thursday. So they are there right now, as a matter of fact. The Upstate Recovery Coalition will be hosting a recovery festival concert at the Charles E. Shipman Center in Greenville, South Carolina on Sunday, September 26, 3 to 7. It is on 975 Foothills Road. There's going to be like some really cool stuff. This is going to be the first recovery festival for Greenville, South Carolina. So that's exciting. There's going to be food. There's going to be games. There's going to be yoga. There's going to be a kid zone. So bring the kids. It's going to be very kid friendly. And I would like to just reflect on the overdose walk that we had in Greenville, South Carolina. It was amazing. We had a little over 100 people there. Chris Stepp and the Stepp family, who lost their daughter, unfortunately, to a accidental overdose, they started this walk, and we went through the city of Greenville, and we said their names, and we supported these families, because I want to say this, so many times people lose loved ones to accidental overdose, and because of the way that they die, they face stigma and shame and discrimination. I'll just say it the way that it is. And so another thing, really neat thing that we did is we had a massive naloxone training. Chris Stepp did that. So I just want to give a shout out and send love to everybody that was involved in this. Freedom Recovery Center, Challenges Inc., and wonderful Phoenix Center, our county agency, was there. All of them were there. So I want to just thank everybody who was involved in this. And we really look forward to this event growing. So, but here we go. It's September. It's Recovery Month. Celebrate. Celebrate. Celebrate recovery. Come on, Chekesha. Celebrate recovery. Come on. Dun, 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 dun. Because I mean, look, it's really August is important. It really is, Chekesha. It's important that we celebrate, or that we have overdose awareness, and then we come out celebrating Recovery Month. So I'm here. I already said her name. I'm here tonight with my good friend Chekesha Kay Ellis. She is from the organization Chase No More. She's author of the book A Life of Kayos, which I want to tell you I read, and I love it, and is a national advocate for those suffering from mental illness and substance use disorder. It is so good to see you.
It is so good to see you. I love you more than fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, and collard greens.
Listen, let me tell you something. I have a weakness, and it is fried chicken. I will admit that. But no, listen, I'm so glad that you're on here, because and there's no shame in this. This is in your story. You lost your hearing to substance use disorder, to opioid addiction. And so the last time we were on, we were having trouble getting you hooked up. But let's both give kudos to our wonderful producer, Todd Widows.
Todd Widows.
And he got you going. And so here you are, and I keep up with you. So got some questions for you.
Yes, I'm all ready. As best I can be.
Tell us, where did you grow up, and what was it like growing up, Chekesha?
So I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, and I basically had a great upbringing. I had a pastor dad and a mom that's the first lady. We grew up in a great home. I had chores. I had curfews. I had to earn everything I got. Me and my siblings had to wake up on Saturday mornings, and before we watched the Soul Train, we had to clean our whole house. We had responsibilities. We had accountability. So I grew up in a great home, and my mom and dad didn't have the perfect relationship, but they basically taught us about faith and Christianity, and we grew up in a Pentecostal religion, in a Pentecostal church. I was a little girl on the front rows of the pews with the ballies in her hair and the stockings and the ruffled dresses. I was her. So my childhood was great. I had a great childhood, a great upbringing with values and morals. My mom is strict, like really. My grandmother was, my mom's mom was very strict. We just grew up very structured, not like this generation.
Well, and Chekesha, I read your book, and I love the book because it's short, it's sweet, and it's to a point that anyone can suffer from substance use disorder. It's just like you're saying. I mean, you grew up. I didn't grow up that way. I mean, my dad was a drug runner and all this stuff, and in and out of prison. So I had a very separate upbringing. But it just tells you that there's no discrimination, that this can affect anyone. And that was one of the things when I read your book, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's just like what you were saying. Her dad was a pastor. Mom was, like you said, a first lady. Pentecostal. And I think about I see my wife, she always watches the recordings, but I see her on here. She got a lot of her values, Chekesha, because her grandmother was Pentecostal, and she spent a lot of time with her grandmother. And the cool thing about it is it's like, I have to work on my spiritual principles. Hers are just kind of built in, like she learned them from her grandmother. But I get that from you too. I mean, you grew up in a very, very, it just sounds like a good family. It was like you said. I mean, but I got to tell you this. We both grew up watching Soul Train. Because listen, I got to tell you this. Like white kids growing up, that's how we learned how to dance. we would have dances, right? And that's how everybody learned. And I'll be like, man, where does it you got to watch Soul Train. But
Love it.
So tell me about that moment where you said, like, I got to do something different. Like, how did you get into recovery? I guess, and if you would tell us, and I think I got a little bit ahead of myself. I'm going to throw another kind of question at you here.
Okay.
What was that? What happened that like spiraled you? Because I read your book. I know the answer to this question, but I want our audience to know this. Like, what happened that got you into addiction? Can you tell us about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I had a turning point, and I call it an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
So aha moment is a moment that you get seconds to make a choice about what you want to do, whether you want to live or die. So I got this aha moment from Oprah Winfrey.
Really?
Oprah Winfrey went to, so I love her. I follow her, and she's one of my inspirational people because she came from so many things. And she basically talks about aha moments. And that's a moment where you just realize that you have to choose life at that moment or what you want to do. And it has nothing to do with calling somebody on the phone and saying, I need a babysitter, or can you get my kids? God will work it out, because that was my higher being. But I realized that at the height of my addiction in 2009, I was taking 35 pills a day. And I tell people this everywhere I go, and they look at me and be like, how? People are so uneducated about addiction. They think it has to do with how you look and your body's weight and all those different things. But it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with your body's tolerance. And for me, the more pills I took, the more I needed after that knee surgery in 2000. In 2009, I was sitting in my truck. The DEA was looking for me because they thought I was running a prescription drug ring. Because I was forging prescriptions, I was doing illegal things, and I wasn't buying no pills off the street. I was doing everything through pharmacies and doctors, and I was forging prescriptions and all kind of illegal things. So I was popping up in the radars from the DEA.
But excuse me, I want to back up, but just back up. It was caused by kind of a minor, I won't say, it was kind of a minor accident. You came out, you were a school teacher, right? So here
I was a school teacher. Yep. I worked for Social Services of Pennsylvania because I was living in Philly, and I had a great job, and I fell, and I wound up having to get surgery for a very bad meniscus tear in my left knee.
Okay, I thought it was your ankle, but I read your book. I thought it was your ankle. It was your knee. Okay, because you fell. There was ice or something. You just came out of the school one day and you fell. Is that right?
I was leaving a client, and I fell down some steps filled with leaves. And after that, I was limping for like months, and I wound up realizing that I had to get surgery, and I had never gotten any procedures or surgeries done. So I was scared, and I was just like, okay, what's going to happen from here? But this was in 2000. This is before this is the very beginning of the opioid crisis in the country. Like, it was, people were still smoking crack cocaine. It was still a crack epidemic at that time. So at that time, everybody was just like, okay, you can get a prescription to get these pills, and you're feeling great on them. And I was one of those people, and I didn't know what I was dealing with.
Chekesha, I think I remember this, but what was your initial, just to get people to understand this, what do you remember what your initial prescription was?
Yes, I do.
Tell me what it was.
So when I first got the surgery, it was like, I remember it being Halloween. It was fall, it was leaves out, it was chilly. My best friend picked me up from the hospital with prescriptions in my hand in a wheelchair. and took me home to my house in Northeast Philadelphia. It had a beautiful condominium. And I was like, okay, so we have to get my prescriptions filled. So we went to the pharmacy, we got my prescriptions filled, and they gave me 120 hydrocodone Lorcet, which is very similar to Percocet, which is oxycodone. So hydrocodone and oxycodone are very similar medications that bind to the receptors in your brain, and they take away all the pain. They make you forget everything.
Yeah, and I mean they gave you 120 watt right off.
Yes.
Right off the rip, and it was it just so happened that you were just allergic to this. You took one, and it was like, and it led to, of course, like losing your hearing and all.
At the height of my addiction, I went from taking one every 4 to 6 hours to 2 to 3 every 4 to 6 hours to 4 to 5. This is over a 9-year period of time. And like I said, I suffered in silence. I didn't have someone that could advocate for me and explain to me that getting sick off of this medication was actually called a withdrawal. I didn't know this. This was in the early 2000s, and it really wasn't an epidemic. So people were just like, the doctors were just prescribing it, and they were just giving out so liberally. And the brutal withdrawals is what made me want more. I didn't want to be sick. That was a twist.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So you get this. I mean, it's not you get this injury. You fall on your knee. I guess you broke your knee or something.
I tore my meniscus.
Okay, which is that's kind of major. I mean, that's a tough injury from what you're telling me. But
a lot of athletes sustain that injury. Basketball players and different type of athletes.
Right. And so you go from being a school teacher to falling on your knee to 120 opioid tablets, I mean, and then you show up on the DEA list, and then you lose your hearing.
Yes.
I mean, it's such a picture. I mean, because for me, I'm old, right? We talk about that. You see the gray hair. I'm old. I mean, I grew up in the crack epidemic. I mean, I went through that. But this is such a snapshot. It really is a snapshot of what was happening to people. It really was. But so you end up on the DEA list. They're looking for you. Again, you end up losing your hearing. You have you struggle with Houston. I think you got pregnant during that period of time, and
I went through my recovery. The first year of my recovery, I came expected with Houston.
Yeah.
I lost my hearing in 2009, and then in 2010, I found my higher being, and I realized that I was going to die. Like I fight so hard for people in recovery because I didn't have that, and people are in silence. I know people that got corporate jobs, great kids in college, beautiful cars, beautiful homes, and they are sick in the morning going through withdrawals from not having the opioids, and they don't understand what it is. So I've said to myself, I'm going to get off of this. I'm going to find a strip and do this. And I realized that I had to revert back to my upbringing, my religion.
Yeah.
Faith in God. I had to revert back to that to get off of these drugs. And with my parents, I got clean in 2010. I texted my mom. I was like, Mom, I can't do this no more. My mom and my dad passed away in 2017, right?
Yeah.
But he was a bishop. He was well respected. He was like the head of the Churches of Christ written in heaven. It's like a whole umbrella of churches all over the South. So when I started going through that process, my dad and my mom was like, we're going to put you on a prayer list. So I had people praying for me all over. And I know that prayer changes things because that's only in my religion. I know that I support many pathways to recovery. But in 2010, I realized I was dying. I was 97 pounds.
I saw pictures, Chekesha. I did. And it's like, oh my gosh.
I was a mess.
And you look so beautiful and healthy. and I want to ask you this, and I want to say this too. One thing that I really love about you is you just don't, you go, I love that you go to grocery stores. Like, it's because a lot of people struggle with substance use disorder and mental illness. They struggle to even say it. And you don't care. I love the way you set up your little, like, you'll go to a Kroger or something and you'll give out naloxone and you'll just talk to people and you'll give out your books and you'll tell your story and you'll give out your phone number. And I love that. I just think that's amazing. I do want to ask you, though, you were talking a little bit about your pathway to recovery, and you mentioned it. And I think you did. What you're saying is that you came back, to God. You came back, to your parents and said, I need help. And I see the little doll that Houston has that's like modeled after your dad. It's so cool. And but what are there things that you do every day? I know that your pathway is a spiritual. It's Christian, following Jesus.
Yes,
that's wonderful. That's part of my pathway too. Are there things that you do on a daily basis to maintain your recovery?
Yep. I basically, so I always say this. I speak to a lot of colleges and high schools, and I tell people recovery is like an onion, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many layers to it. Okay. And so when you peel away one layer and the next layer is like something else, and you're just like, okay, like, how do I deal with this? So I think that for me, reverting back to my Christian faith and the fact that my dad passed away in 2017, and I was clean for 7 years before he passed away. So he saw things in me that I didn't even see.
Wonderful. Yeah.
My dad was very, very anointed and respected and loved all over the world. And so basically, like, he knew things I didn't. And when I first got clean in 2010, he gave me a book. He gave me a 12-step book. And I didn't do the 12-step thing because for me, when I went into recovery in 2010, I was deaf, fully deaf. I didn't have cochlear implants like I have now. And I didn't have someone that could interpret what they were saying in the meeting. So I was turned off. I was like, okay, so how am I going to sit in a meeting? And they didn't understand I was losing my hearing. It took me a whole year to go deaf, totally deaf, and I could hear nothing at all. So at that point, I realized that I had to have a higher being to get through that because I didn't have someone to say, oh, here's a program for an interpreter to hear for this. I didn't have someone do that for me. And this was in 2010. So I had to pull myself together. And I just kept saying, my dad said to me, baby doll, you can get through this, but you have to forgive yourself first. You can't recover fully if you're still carrying that guilt. And when I got through that point, then I was like, okay, I started praying, reading my scriptures, and I'm not the holiest person that I should be. And there's a lot of things I should be doing right now that I'm not. But I know that I had a higher being and a higher calling and an assignment to do. And that's why I tell people that was my higher being.
We love our word purpose, don't we? We love that word. You and I love that word. And it's so amazing though. But when you say that, I was going to meetings, but at the same time, everybody didn't know I was going deaf. So you couldn't. That kind of makes me think: what do we do for people that need to go to recovery meetings? That, oh my God, you just made me think of something. And so that was a barrier. But thank God you had somebody strong with spiritual principles in your dad and your parents and your family. Like I didn't have that, I mean, my family was torn apart, was in shreds. I mean, it really was. And we really haven't fully come together. It just didn't happen for us. I mean, because because I believe the disease of substance use disorder and mental illness, it's like throwing a bomb on a family. It's just, everybody just goes everywhere. But so, for me, I did cling on to, of course I could hear, right? But I did cling on to that recovery family, and that was, I mean, that had to be it for me. But it was wonderful that you had that. That's I love that.
That was the pivotal part of my recovery, period. That was the pivotal part. Like I tell people all the time, Mike, that you can't do this alone. It's not a human experience for a lot of people. You have to have somebody else to say, let me help put you through this next step. You know, let me help you get there. Like you just can't look at somebody and to be alone to recover. I know some people have done that, but I think that the best pathway is to reach out. I say this like in class. I used to be a school teacher. Raise your hand, put your hand up.
Ask for help.
Put your hand up and ask for help. It's simple. I am on my social media heavy. I'm reaching out and I'm posting every day, all day. And I tell people all the time, if you do not like positivity, then I'm not the person for you to follow. Because all I'm doing is talking about how to uplift people in this time, in this crisis. It's more than just the opioid crisis now, because not only are people addicted to opioids and different drugs, but they are flooded out of their homes. They're in wildfires. They're in hurricanes, earthquakes, gun violence. All types of different things are affecting our communities. And we, the opioid crisis had taken a back seat to that. And I'm bringing that back to the hoods because I'm down in the trenches in the markets where people got to go eat. So whether you're going through withdrawal or not, you're going to get up. You're going to take your food stamp card, your EBT card. You're going to go on ShopRite and you're going to buy some food for your kids. A lot of people that's not that, down in addiction, going to get up and they're going to buy food. And I'm going to be set up in the front of your markets and I'm going to be there. You're going to see my face.
I love that.
I'm going to be there.
I dig that, man. I mean, nobody's really doing that.
Yes.
Here in Greenville. I mean, because you're right. I mean, we got to go get groceries. And while we're getting groceries, why don't we have something set up for naloxone? Why don't we have people that are in recovery to just give this positive message? Heck, you might be giving me an idea. Maybe I need to do that. Just get a little table, and this is the Recovery First podcast. And listen, and just
table in the market.
Chekesha, I'll just announce it to the world, man. I'm in recovery. I'm in recovery from substance use disorder and mental illness and everything. And people go, because I'm in the South. I mean, like, I'm in South Carolina. I'm in Greenville. South. People go, you know what? Yeah. And by the way, here's naloxone. And let me tell you just the positive things about recovery and this, that, and the other, because I think anyway, I love it. And but let me ask you this. Did you find I know you had barriers with your hearing. I hear that. That touched me because if I can back up a little, I'm probably driving Todd crazy tonight because, but backing up, you've got me thinking about barriers with people that struggle with their hearing or Spanish speaking. Our friend, Angelo, how do I say his name right?
Angelo Liveras.
Yeah, that really advocates for Spanish. I think about him a lot, Chekesha, because I live in the area where my wife and I live. It is predominantly Spanish, and I just wonder, like, is there meetings? And there's so much that goes through my head. That, of course, I have a recovery program, but did you find like barriers being a minority woman in recovery? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think that first of all, I love Angelo.
Yes, I love him. Shout out to Angelo. We weren't planning on talking about him tonight.
Angelo Liveras, he is so motivational, and he has given me direction before I've spoken with governors and senators. Like, Angelo is the plug. He's very passionate about what he does. But I just want to say that when I was going through my recovery, the biggest barrier for me is I went into a recovery place in North Jersey, and it was one of the worst situations I ever had in my life. And guess what, Todd?
What?
It was Labor Day weekend. Like, coming up, the year before I got clean, I went into a place in North Jersey, And I called a friend, and I knew I was going to die because I had ran out of my doctors, ran out of scripts. The cops was looking for me. I was losing my hearing. So I was like, it was like the cops in the middle of a high-speed chase. But I was just in my own head, like, I got to figure this out. I called my friend. I was like, please help me. But I went into a place, right? The biggest barrier for me was my insurance. Like, when you have Medicaid, you get the basic bare minimum. Like,
is that what you had, Chekesha, was Medicaid?
I had Medicaid. I was on welfare when I got clean in 2010. I didn't have no money. I didn't have no job. I didn't have nothing. I was on welfare. I was getting $210 a month in food stamps.
And and we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, and that's okay because we are passionate and we do have a purpose, and right. And I'm so grateful for that. You bring that out in me, and talking about Angelo, and he grew up in the height of his addiction was just like mine. We really hit it off at Mobilize Recovery because we come from and I'm gonna, you know what, that reminds me, I have him on the show, and we're going to talk about how the crack cocaine epidemic came about, and it's going to be interesting. But let me ask you this, and I think we kind of talked about it. I had a question here. Tell us about what you do with Chase No More. And I think we talked about it, right? You set up at grocery stores, wherever it may be, and you tell your story with your head held high.
Yes. So,
right. And I love that, and I know we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Really quick, so I'm working with
well, go ahead.
Brown's ShopRights stores of Pennsylvania. So it's a guy named Jeff Brown. He's the owner of 12 ShopRights. Basically, there's ShopRights all over, but the ones he purchased has his name on them. They're called Brown's ShopRights, and they are tailored to the inner city communities. So they're like, a lot of them are in the hoods. So I reached out to them, and they saw my press kit, and they were like, oh my God, like, we would love to have you. And we appreciate platforming you and sharing our platform. So he has 12 stores, and I've done 4 thus far. And I have given out about 65 boxes of Narcan. Naloxone saves lives. Naloxone saves lives. I'm telling you.
And Chekesha, that is exciting. Tell me,
save lives.
Let's plug these folks. Tell me a little bit about these grocery stores, and it's kind of a independent grocery store chain. What is the name of this chain again?
So the guy name is Jeff Brown.
Okay.
And so I was there Saturday, right? I had a pop-up event there. He lets me set my tables up, and I have all my Narcan, the nasal and the intramuscular. I have my books out. I have candy for the kids. When the moms come by, you have a purple lollipop because all my colors is purple for recovery. So he allowed me to come out to 4 stores. But I'm from Philadelphia, so I grew up in Philadelphia. So a lot of the stores that I picked are in the hoods I was in when I was going through my addiction. So I did a location last Saturday. My mom comes out. Houston comes out. Yep. We set up my table, the chairs, and people just like, I don't know if it's the branding or my energy, but people walk up, they see the book, they be like, and let me just say this, Todd.
Yeah.
When I went on board with this with Jeff Brown, at first I was like, I wanted to sell my books, but guess what? It's not even about the books.
That's
because
right.
I give out more naloxone than I sell books, and that is the main purpose. Because communities are dying. Like, people are just like, my uncle, he overdosed, but the ambulance took too long to come. If there's a crisis in the community and you dial 911, it depends on what's going on, how fast they're going to get to you. Have that naloxone in hand.
Chekesha, you're doing more than that. You're giving out hope. But what's the name of the grocery store? It's
called Brown's ShopRights stores.
Brown's ShopRights.
Brown's ShopRights. They're all over Pennsylvania. He has 12 stores.
And I think it's wonderful that Brown's ShopRights, it's an independent store there in Philly, right?
Yeah.
New Jersey, but you're right on the line. You're right on the line of Philly and all that. But you go into Philly and you go to these grocery stores. Well, you know what? Shout out to Brown's ShopRite in Philly.
Yes,
let me tell you something, man. Y'all are I can't say it. Y'all are bad butt. I love it, man. And so let me ask you this. And I've thought about, my wife says I need to write a book, and I just don't know if I can. I don't know if I can pull it off. What was it like to write the book? I mean, can you kind of like tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So here's my book.
There it is. A Life of Kayos.
I know it's backwards, but it's okay.
It's all right.
So this book is 56 pages long, but let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
My passion developed to write this book over the quarantine because of the over 93,000 overdose deaths that the United States of America have solved, right?
Yes.
So I was like, okay, a lot of this is not just from the drugs, it's from all of the other situations that people are dealing with in the communities. So I was like, okay, I'm going to write a book about this. I have to. So I hooked up with a woman, and I love her so much. Guess what, Todd? She's country like you. She's from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, baby. She likes. I guarantee you, she likes fried chicken too. And listen, and I want to say this again. This book, the thing about this book is, you're right. It's 56 pages. Not a long book,
right?
But the book is. I would love to. There's a lady here. There's some organizations here that do a lot with prevention, and I think the book, because you can sit down and read the book in a short period of time, but it really drives home the fact this book is very valuable, guys, and I'm going to tell you why. It really drives home the fact that anyone can suffer from substance use disorder. Anyone. She grew up in a wonderful, supportive family, right? Chekesha grew up with a pastor and in church and sitting on the front row listening to her dad preach and thank God that she had that. She could come back to that. It's almost like she just came back home, right?
Yes.
It stole. This substance use disorder stole so much from you, but you could come back home, and I think that was awesome. And home for me was 12-step recovery. I mean, it became my family, and a lot of people. So I totally get that. And so we talked a little bit earlier about Houston, and I love him. He's such a miracle from God, and if you don't follow Chekesha, you should follow her a little bit on Facebook, because she's got this precious son that's part of her story, is going through addiction and having Houston, and like at a gas station or something. I can't. I'll let you tell.
It was in a gas station parking lot in an ambulance. 24 weeks gestation.
Yeah. And what were some? And I know there's joys and challenges of being a mom, but I mean, what are some of the joys and challenges of being a mom? I mean, let's talk about the miracle of Houston just for a moment. I mean, we just did. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself with you, because that's what we do. We talk a lot, right? But no, I mean, he's such a gift from God, because you really didn't think that he was going to make it, did you? I mean,
no. I had Houston not even a year after I got clean. So I think it was maybe 11 or 10 months after I got clean, right?
Yeah.
I wound up becoming expectant, and then I was 41 when I had him. So I had a lot of risk factors anyway. Like I was recovering from addiction, and I was over 40, which is very high risk. And so I did everything right when I was pregnant with my son. And guess what? His due date was July 7th, right? I had him March the 24th of 2012. So he was very early. And I was in my house, dialing 911 and deaf, because I didn't have the cochlear implants at the time. So I was fully deaf. And the ambulance in my condo community came right out And I was like, I'm on the toilet. I feel like I'm gonna have a baby. I don't know what's going on. When I got on the ambulance, I don't have no kids, so I don't know what it feels like for your water to break. But when my water broke, he came out, and at first I was in shock. I was like, he was so tiny, but I was like, okay, my baby's coming home. I had him in my bathrobe, a fluffy white Victoria's Secret bathrobe. I had my baby in my room, and I was.
He was so tiny.
He was 1 pound and 10 ounces.
Chekesha, how much did he? He was very premature. It
1
was
pound and 10 ounces.
I'm sorry. How
Can
much?
You hear me?
Yeah, how much do you weigh?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
He was 1 pound and 10 ounces.
1 pound, 10 ounces. I've seen pictures of him, and it's amazing. Like you didn't even know you were going to have him. Like it's what you're saying, and it was just.
I didn't have a baby shower. I couldn't do anything. I didn't have a baby shower.
And Houston, let me tell you this. Houston is named after one of my favorite artists of all times, Whitney Houston. I didn't know, spelled a little different, Hyustan. Houston, not like Houston, but anyway. So he's such a gift from God, and I it's just the whole story. Your whole story is just really amazing, and to see where you are now. And to see how I think what we can learn, we as people in the recovery community can learn from you is hold your head up high, find that grocery store. Like, I'm sure there's not a grocery store, but, go out and just tell people your story and give them hope. And you're right. There's so much going on right now with just disasters and hurricanes and Afghanistan and everything that's going on right now. People need to just hear hope. And I would love to see something I'll admit this. Like, I do most of the grocery shopping. Miss Todd does not like the grocery shop. Okay. I do most of, I'm like, I got to go to the grocery store, but to have, you're right. Because, oh God, I got 20 items on you. Got to, it's such a hassle. But to go there and have somebody just greeting you and saying, hey, let me tell you about a substance use disorder and mental illness. And let me tell you my story. And let me tell you about naloxone. It's just, I can't say it enough. And so let me ask you this. 2019, let's go back to that.
Yes.
Because Mobilize Recovery, I can remember the applications came in.
Yes.
And I started looking at it, and I told my wife, I said, I think I'd like to fill out fill this thing out. And so she helps me because I don't type good. And so I'm telling her everything that I'm doing, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get picked for this, but I'm going to send the application anyway. And she starts typing everything up, and she's like, Mike, I think you might have a good chance. And I think it was like, what was it? There was only like 120 or 150 people out of
it was like 100 people. The first year was like 100 people because there wasn't no virtual, there wasn't no COVID or any of that.
Yeah. So there wasn't that. You're right. I think there was 100 people, right? Because I think what Ryan wanted to do, just to kind of let you guys know. So we needed, with the opioid crisis, we needed national advocacy. It's not just that we needed national advocacy, but we needed state advocacy, and we needed something that Chekesha Kay Ellis does very well, which is grassroots community advocacy. We needed all this. And so Ryan Hampton, through a Facebook grant in 2019, got up. I think we ended up with a little more money. We had 100 people that got initially, and then we brought in about 50 more to start this organization. It's kind of like we are the world.
Mm-hmm. We are the world. That's what
we are the world. I mean, but
we're holding hands from state to state. We're connecting.
Yeah, it was exciting because I, you know, and I tell you what it did for me, Chekesha. I was still, I was, I was, I was still kind of in an anonymous recovery mode. If that makes,
Okay.
because you got to understand, like I got in recovery at 25. I'm 55. At that time, I'm in my 50s. I didn't really. I mean, but when I left Mobilize Recovery, I was like, man, I've really got to get out here and like
Yes.
really start living my recovery and the fact that
Yes.
I have suffered and overcome and continue to deal with mental illness. It's okay. It's okay for a guy to sit here on his podcast and say that he struggled with depression and that he struggled with PTSD. It's okay to say that, isn't it, Chekesha? It's okay, right? And my wife's sitting there going, yeah, it's okay, Mike. And so Mobilize Recovery really going through that process for me, and you can talk about what it did for you. Well, we know what it did, but it really gave me the confidence to get out here and really start doing some grassroots things. Right. And to say, you know what, I don't care. So many people are dying. So many people are suffering in silence. And like, it was so cool. I never would have had this confidence, Chekesha, to like the overdose awareness walk. They were like, Mike, get your bullhorn and lead us. And I'm like, really, me? You know, and I had my bullhorn. I'm like, okay. And like this for 2 years in a row, I've had my bullhorn and I lead my community. And I want to just say this. I'm so honored to do that. I lead my community. There were 100 people at the overdose walk, and I've got my bullhorn. And like, people are like, and you've never been to Greenville, such a beautiful city, Chekesha. I wish you could come, like, just to see it.
Listen, I'm coming.
It's such a beautiful city. I mean, like, people are sitting on the sidewalks, and I'm coming through there, and I'm like, I'm saying their name, you know, I'm saying Austin, and I'm saying Andy, and I like, people would give me a list, and I'd say, give me a list of your loved ones, because when we walk through this city, say their names, right?
Say their names.
Because how many of these people have had to like suffer in silence? And I think most of all, really, what Mobilize Recovery did was it gave us the confidence. And kudos to Ryan Hampton. I know he's a little down. Listen, Ryan Hampton, Garrett Hayde. Thank you guys for starting this.
Aaron Kacharski, that's his left hand. Aaron Kacharski, we love you.
Aaron Kacharski, all these folks that started this, because it really, you know, I know sometimes it's like, for me, it kind of irritates me sometimes because it gets a little political. But here's the thing. I think more than anything, we need to be united in our message. And we need to, and I know that Ryan, I just want to say this with Chekesha, and I don't know that he'll see this little podcast. Right. We're going to record it and we're going to send it out. But we just want to say we love you, Ryan Hampton.
We love you.
I know that there's some stuff going on with Purdue Pharma that we had really just anyway, some tough things going on with that happened yesterday. I guess they got shielded from any future lawsuits. I don't know exactly the details of all this. Chekesha and I were talking about it, but but it doesn't matter. And I'll just say it. I think we need to start getting really loud, man. Like, this is a humanitarian, this is a civil rights movement, man.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I'm sorry. I think, can you imagine, like, I got into recovery in 1990. Can you imagine how much discrimination I faced? Like, I literally remember losing a job because they found out I was in recovery. I'm not kidding you. I know it's hard to believe. I literally lost a job.
Crazy.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, you didn't tell.
Can I say this really quick?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, your show, baby. Go for it.
That the stigmas, like, I love how you refer to addiction as substance use disorder, because I mean, I know that like you're someone in 12 step, right? So
Yeah.
you've been clean for a lot of years, and back when you were in recovery, then you could say addict, dope fiend, pillhead,
Yeah.
crackhead. But I just think that a lot of those words and terminologies is preventing people from wanting to be transparent about how they feel about it. Like I was a pillhead, I was a junkie, bitch. I was
Yeah.
different things, and people didn't understand that. It took me 10 years. It took me 4 years after getting clean to come out public with my story. I just want to say that your transparency and our transparency saves lives. People have a responsibility to send the ladder back up. You can't just go through something and spend 30 years in that recovery bubble and successfully make it through and keep your mouth quiet. And there's people out here that might be like, well, I've been clean for 7 years, but I feel like I'm going to go. I can't do this. I can't go no more. And if there's people out here sharing those recovery layers, recovery is like an onion. If you're sharing those recovery layers, each layer, each year is a layer. Each situation is a layer. If you're sharing those recovery layers, people are going to look at that and be like, you gave me, I went to the pink cloud phase and I thought I could save the world. But then when I realized that I had to get my kids back, I had to get my job back, I had to pay my rent. And you got me through that purpose because you shared that recovery. We got to keep sharing the recovery layers.
Grocery store. Hope at the grocery store. Yeah, and you're right, Chekesha. It was probably 20 something years before I came out and started, quote, recovering out loud. And one of the things,
right.
And my wife, she always watches the recording. She's on here. I see the little things go. But look, one of the things I'll share this real quick. I know we need to be winding it down, but I'll share this real quick. I used to joke around and refer to myself as a crackhead. And I hate to even say that term, but that's the only way. I would just joke around about it. Or a kid would come in a meet and I'd slap him on the back and say, oh, you're just old crackhead like me. I don't do that anymore. My wife, she doesn't like those negative labels. She said, Mike, I don't want you to say that in the house anymore. Yeah. And I want to say this. She's such a, I don't know why I'm kind of getting a little, but I appreciate her so much because she supports me so much in my recovery and in my mental health walk. Because God, COVID has been so hard for all of us. Mm-hmm. And but what birthed out of Mobilize Recovery is the Recovery Advocacy Project.
Yes.
And so Chekesha helps in New Jersey. I keep saying
I'm in New Jersey. I'm proud. Yeah. I'm wearing my badge.
She helps with New Jersey, like with legislation, stuff like that. And you don't have to be like this. You don't have to be this guru. All you have to have is just tell your story of hope and just advocate and maybe go up to Columbia, South. I work with South Carolina. As a matter of fact, with Aaron, you mentioned Aaron Kacharski. And so that's kind of so Mobilize is the event, but the actual organization is the Recovery Advocacy Project.
People get together from all the different states.
We need to get bullhorns.
Yes, bullhorns.
We need to start marching. I'm telling you, after this Purdue crap and everything, and I don't know the whole extent of that because I don't know enough about it to speak about it. But it looks like Purdue is just going to get. They're still going to be one of the richest families in America after they've killed all these people, 500,000 people. I mean, I'll just say that. But and real quick as we wind it up, I've got just a tidbit. So Chekesha's mom and my mom have the same birthday, July 24th.
I found that out. I was like, how you doing?
June, I call her June Bug, and my mom. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I was just like, oh, we got the same. But and just as we wind it up, I always ask this of my guests, like what does the future hold for Chekesha Kay Ellis? I mean, what do you see where are you going? I mean, is this something you've prayed about or listened to God about? I mean, what's going to
Listen,
happen?
Todd, I have, you ready? You ready for this?
I am. Tell me.
I have a calling on my life, and I'm not the prodigal son. I'm not a perfect person. I say a few curse words. I mean, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
We all sin and fall short, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, I know that I have a high calling, and I have saints praying for me that are really anointed. I am working on a book, a big book, because I know that with this small book, I wanted to immerse people into how it all started, right? But through the 10 years of my addiction, it was hell in a handbag.
Right.
So I'm preparing to write a book, a big book about what I went through in addiction and how for people to have hope, because people need hope more than anything in this world right now. People need hope like they need water, like bottled water. People need hope like that.
Yeah.
So I'm writing a book, and also some big news I found out. I'm on a coalition. It's in Washington, D.C., near Capitol Hill. It's called Stop Opioid Abuse.
Okay.
And recently, they reached back out to me to be on a board with the FDA, with the United States FDA. And they want people to be like, I'm going to be like a patient advocate, basically. So I'm going to be like a person. This whole thing is like a collaborative where I'm going to read from this paper because
and listen, as you talk about that, that's
right.
wonderful. And like maybe we'll have you on again as you grow. But so the future holds a little Washington D.C.
Yes, I'm going to be. I'm going to be on the board with the FDA.
That's amazing. I mean, I am so proud of you, and we love you. And I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing at the grocery store. Shout out again to what is that grocery store again?
That Brown is the plug.
Plug them, man. Plug them.
That Brown is the plug.
Yeah, and get this little recording out. Let's share it all over the place because what a message of hope tonight. And Todd, you got anything for Chekesha? What a wonderful show tonight.
No, I just wanted to add in that. So I've got the link. I've been flashing it for those that are watching live. I've been flashing the link for Chekesha's book, but I'm also going to add that into the comments. So if people want to buy that, they can go to Amazon and pick that up. And for those that are listening to the podcast replay, you can look it up. It's a Life of Kayos. It's K-A-O-S.
K-A-Y-O-S.
Yes. So actually, can you just give your book a plug real quick so I don't butcher it? I'd rather, since you wrote it, I'd rather you give the plug for it.
Todd, one thing, Willows. There's make sure it's the one on Amazon with the 5 stars because there's 2 different listings on there. I want to make sure they have the right listing.
Okay. That's where I got it, was Amazon. And I would love to, and I'll say this about the book. I think that I'd like to talk to there's a lady here by the name, we're going to have her on the show. There's a lady here by the name of Martine Halu. And she has it's called I forgot the name of her organization, but she does prevention. And I think that this book would be a wonderful book to really focus in on prevention so that people will think, like when they turn their ankle or when they fall on their knee or whatever, that they'll be very careful with these opioids. Very, very, very. I'm scared to death of them. I'll tell you. I was telling some of the guys in the program, we were talking about what do we do. I was in the van with them today. And we were talking about, well, what do I do if I get hurt and I have to take these? And I said, the first thing I do is I hand them to my wife. I tell my sponsor that, look, and I've only had to take them one time in the last several years. But I made sure, and out of 30 of them, Chekesha, I only took 3, right? And I took a lot of ibuprofen and stuff. So, yeah.
Can I say something really quick, Todd? What you just said, we got to end this. but we need to educate people about family history, because I was a victim of, because of my addiction running on both sides of my bloodline, that I was 27 and took a pill for the first time and loved it. So we got to also talk about that can be a big factor in people loving a pill or a drug for the first time. Family history is ravishing whole families and generations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but hey, Chekesha, we'll get back around to you. I want to know about the hopefully I'll see you in Las Vegas again. Yeah. So we had it virtual last year. This year we get to see each other. Hope everybody's vaccinated and ready to go. And
and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Mike, but I just wanted to let everyone know I put it in the comments. Your book is listed in the comments online. And it's a Life of Kayos, Kayos.
Yes.
My Opioid Journey Through Hell, Hope, and Healing. And it's a paperback.
Fantastic. Take us out, Todd. Ask 'em Studios. Great show tonight. Share it, share it, share it.
So 30 years ago, when I first came into recovery, we didn't have recovery housing. If someone was seeking recovery and maybe coming to meetings and didn't have anywhere to live, we'd basically try to help them find somewhere to live. And that's how it all started. We all started basically living together and keeping each other accountable in recovery. Now, as the years have gone through, it's basically turned into an industry. And with that industry, there comes a lot of challenges. There's quite a bit of exploitation. You're dealing with a very, very vulnerable population. So that's the reason that we started the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association, to help providers, to help other recovery housing operators, to help mentor them, to help to advocate for them. And one of the things that we did right off the bat was we started getting naloxone into all recovery housing in South Carolina. We were very fortunate to get a grant from the Clinton Foundation and some help from the Recovery Advocacy Project and Challenges Inc. and Favor Greenville. And, all of them combined have helped the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association to begin getting naloxone into all recovery housing in South Carolina, and to help train their residents on the use of naloxone. We believe that is the first standard that we need to accomplish in South Carolina. Recovery housing operators are a very valuable resource to those suffering from substance use disorder in South Carolina, and we want to advocate for them, train them, mentor, and just work with them with whatever needs that they may have. If you want to get in touch with us, it's screcoveryhousing.org.